still dealing with some sort of discipline, some hardship in his life. And again, we see where, in the last one, David refused to speak. He was mute because he didn't want to say the wrong thing. In this one, we're going to see in this chapter, David's going to say some things in this chapter that all of us have wanted to say or have said. And it's difficult because we tend to look at the Psalms and they're so cheery and he'll go through a moment, but there's victory. But David's going to say some things that we've all thought, but felt a little hinky about saying. And what he's saying in this chapter is, there are some things as believers, as followers of God. Now again, he's not a follower of Christ because he doesn't know Christ has not come yet. But he is a follower of God. He says, there are things in this life that I don't agree with. There are some things that you do, Jehovah, Yahweh, Elohim, Adonai, God, that make me mad. And I'm going to have it out. However, I want to be careful who I say it in front of. And so this is where he starts. He says, I said it. I'm going to uphold it. That I will guard my ways. I'll be on guard. Lest I sin with my tongue. I will restrain my mouth with a muzzle. Now I think dog there, don't you? I'll put a muzzle over my mouth. In other words, I will actually take something external and put it over my face so I can't say it. I would much rather do that than not be cautious about what comes out of my mouth. Or on Facebook. Amen. Honestly, there are some things that we're just supposed to be quiet about. I'm not saying that as Christians we got to sit back and just get steamrolled and let the world do whatever. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that there are some things, there are some moments that I have with my Heavenly Father that I disagree with Him. I want Him to know that I disagree with Him. But if the wrong people hear that, if a new Christian or the wicked hear me say it, they will not understand that this is just an issue between a son and a father. I can have this conversation with a mature Christian. I can have this conversation with Rex, and Rex can say, I understand what you're going through, and what you're saying does not change my relationship with God. But the world is looking, and if you're going to murmur and complain and gripe about God did this and God's done that, and now I can't get by, why in the world would they choose Him? And we live in a nation, a world, a church that, I mean, honestly, a lot of Christians look like they've been sucking on sour persimmons. Now, we are so blessed in this church because I can't tell you how many times the smiles are contagious. They're everywhere. Hugs and pies. Willie, we're so glad you're back. Lord, bless this pie to my body. And David's going to speak some things, but he says, I know right now that what I have is an attitude issue with God. I know that. I don't think I'm wrong, though. You ever had that conversation? God, I don't think I'm wrong in this. I think you're wrong. Maybe you've never said it, but have you thought it? Yeah. And David says, I want to be very, very careful who I say this in front of. Is that hypocritical? No. The world would say that's hypocrisy. David says it's not hypocrisy. I can say this to somebody who is mature and understands and has walked this life. But as for me, I need to be careful about what comes out of my mouth. He says, I will restrain my mouth with something external if I have to in order to control my tongue. If this means I've got to delete my Facebook, if I've got to delete some friends, if I've got whatever it takes to stop speaking venom and evil.
And Ron illustrated that very well.
Yeah.
Yes.
This morning was exact. And what did she say was her gift?
Caregiver.
She has claimed to be an instrument of holy God and is cussing at Juan. And Juan says, it's a good thing you're saying it to me. Because other wicked people, when you say that and they see that, you don't look any different from the rest of the wicked.
Right.
So why would I want your God?
He said, she said, she had a special bonding with animals.
He was a caretaker.
And was a peacemaker. Came back twice for me.
But he kept it muzzled.
But he muzzled his mouth. He says, I will restrain my mouth with a muzzle while the wicked are before me. I was mute with silence. Now, does that mean that he was speaking, I'm a cheerleader even though I don't feel? No, he just said, I was silent. If you don't have anything good to say, what were you told? Don't say anything. Okay? He says, I'll just mute. I ain't happy. And I ain't going to say anything bad about you. But I ain't going to say anything good either. Mad. I've asked God, I've petitioned you, I've asked over and over and again, and you won't do it. What's your problem? You're not fair. You ever had that conversation with God? David said, I'm about to have this conversation with you. I'm going to write it down because I think there are other people in the same position I am. But I need to be careful where I seek my advice and what comes out of my mouth.
Amen.
I held my peace even from good. I didn't even say anything good about you. I was just quiet. And my sorrow was stirred up. My heart was hot within me. This is beyond, God, you hurt my feelings. He's mad. My heart was hot within me. While I was musing, the fire burned. And so then I spoke with my tongue. I let it loose. I just let it fly. And you know what I said? Lord, make me to know my end. I don't understand. So make me to know what the end is. David's about to let loose with his tongue. And here's what he says. It's not a chastisement. It's not an what he's saying is, God, show me my end. Now, that seems morbid. This isn't David saying, show me how I die, Lord. That's not what he's asking. What David is saying is, he says, show me, make me to know my end and what is the measure of my days, that I may know how frail I am. Indeed, you have made my days as handbreadths. That's a measurement. It's very small. It's not even a cubit. Handbreadths. That's my life. Those are my days. And my age is as nothing before you. If I were Methuselah and lived to be almost 1,000, it's still nothing compared to your age. Certainly every man at his best state is but vapor. He's going to say it twice in this chapter. And then he says, now, Selah, I want you to pause and meditate on this. I want you to think about this for a moment. I am so angry and so mad, I'm not going to say out loud where the wicked can hear. And when I do decide that I'm going to talk, here's what I'm going to say. God, reveal to me. How short is my life? What is all this worth? What is the cost? What am I going through? What is the end result? Why am I doing it? What's the goal? Surely every man walks about like a shadow. Surely, now if I had to title this chapter, I'd just call it Surely. Don't call me Shirley. He says, surely they busy themselves in vain. Man, he heaps up riches, and he does not know who will gather them. Have you ever been down to the cemetery down here at the bottom of the hill? Have you ever looked at some of the really old headstones? Now their name and the dates were written in stone. That's permanent. Well, I can take you down to some stone that you can't see the name.
They're faded away from weather.
It's faded. Well, that whole cemetery is less than 150 years old. You're telling me I can chisel the name Andy Mullen on a rock and it won't even last 150 years? That's what David is saying is, we act like everything is about this life. It's about what you can amass, what you can accumulate, how much rich, how much wealth, because they're all going to remember you. And they're not. Now, David has no idea that we are going to remember him. But we're not going to remember David because David was great. We're going to remember David because of who his God was. That's how David was great, not in himself. And he says, we heap up riches and we don't even know who's going to gather them. Now, why does he want to know his end? I think he explains it here a little bit farther down. He says, and now, Lord, what do I wait for? I've asked you. I've gone through this discipline. I've gone through this struggle. I've gone through these things. I've asked you for these things. And what am I waiting for? My hope is in you. We go all the way back, and he says, my heart is hot. My hope is in you. It's almost, remember the scripture, be angry and sin not? David's actually living that. He says, I'm angry, but I don't want to sin. And God, you are my hope. And I think that's what frustrates him. You're my hope. Everything I have is because of you. My riches don't mean anything. I can't amass anything without you. That's one reason I'm mad. It's because you are my provision. Deliver me from all my transgressions. God, forgive me. Do not make me the reproach of the foolish. Don't make me an embarrassment. Don't make people laugh because I follow you. I was mute. I did not open my mouth because it was you who did it. Whatever I was going through, whatever I was mad about, I didn't open my mouth and speak. Why? Because whatever I was going through, you're the one that did it. And I didn't want to say anything bad against you. Not in public, not where the wicked could hear. I kept my mouth shut because you were the one who's doing it. I'm assuming for my own good. But it doesn't feel that way. Remove your plague from me. I was consumed by the blow of your hand. When with rebukes you correct man for iniquity, you make his beauty melt away like a moth. Surely every man is vapor. Selah. Now, I don't know whether that moth, whether he's talking about, like, a moth will degrade fabric and, it wears away, it dissolves, it goes into nothing. And so he says your beauty just melts away. You make beauty melt away. You ever look in the mirror and find a new line? What in the world? Your beauty melts away. He says, hear my prayer, O Lord, and give ear to my cry. Listen to me. We've heard him say this before. Listen to me when I call you. Hear my prayer. Hear my cry. Do not be silent at my tears. For I am a stranger with you. I think this is why he says, show me the end. Now, understand, this is Old Covenant, law-abiding David saying, show me the end. Show me that my riches and all the things that we can amass and all the power is enough. Show me. And in order to show me, you've got to take me to the end and beyond. I'm a stranger with you. How many of you ever thought that God was a stranger here? Is that what David's saying? I'm a stranger with you. I'm a stranger with you, a sojourner. I'm just traveling through this world. I'm just traveling through this life. But if I'm traveling, have you ever gone on a vacation? You ever driven on a really long vacation? Have you ever driven and you go, I just want to get there? It's not the destination, it's the journey. Tell that to 5 people trapped in a Toyota. I just want to be there. That's kind of what David's saying is, listen, I'm traveling through this, but I need to know that there's a destination. I can tolerate this as long as I know there's something on the other end. Show me my days. Show me the distance of my life. I'm just a vapor. What is all of this for? Why do I even exist? Is what David's kind of asking. What's the meaning of life? I'm a stranger with you, a sojourner, as all my fathers were. Well, who's he talking about there? Abraham was a sojourner. Now, God told Abraham, in fact, let's just go to Hebrews chapter 11. We'll go back to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 11, this is the Hall of Faith. And let's go to verse 8. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out, not knowing whither he went. Is God talking to Abraham or is God talking to you? I've asked you to go to a destination. And you don't know a whole lot about it. I've done that on purpose, Abraham. If I told you all the details, it wouldn't be a place that I made for you. But I want you to understand, Abram, it's a place that I picked out for you. It's a place that Joshua and Moses, when you guys get there, you're not going to have to plant. You're going to be able to read fields you never planted. You're going to live in homes you never built. It's already prepared. You just got to go take it. I prepared it for you. Abraham, I need you to go. And is he talking to Abraham or is he talking to me? I called you to go into a place that you should receive for an inheritance. You're my child. I'm your father. And I've called you.
Of Abraham to us.
Yes. It is directly to Abraham, but this is not just the promised land on earth. Jerusalem is not just an earthly place, it's also our heavenly place. They're both simultaneously happening. Okay? By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country. It's not his citizenship. I'm not a member of this world. If you were to look at my flag, and here's part of our problem is for so long, I put a whole lot of my identity into a United States flag. And truthfully, it's not until just very recently that I've really been disappointed in my nation, in my leaders. But I have to remember I'm a sojourner. When it comes down to it, I'm not a member here. That's why things don't feel comfortable here. That's why I feel like there's something more. I feel edgy. This isn't right. This isn't, it's not home yet. I want to go home. And only one thing feels like home. And that's home. And he says, I'm a sojourner in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob. Dwelling in tabernacles. Now, what does that really mean? I dwell in tents. There's nothing. I live in a tent. I think this is more than God. This is more than just saying you live in this. It's not an actual house. God says, I prepare a place, mansions. Inside my Father's house are many mansions. It's not a tabernacle. It's not a tent. They're mansions. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't have told you. But here on this world, you live in tents. Now, I hate to think for a moment that I'm spending what I'm spending in a mortgage on a tent. But even if you spend millions of dollars on a home, if you don't stay in it and keep up with it and take repairs, and what happens? It's not permanent. It's not forever. And he says, you live in a tent. But here's the thing. He's not just talking about your earthly house. I think he's talking about this house. It's just a tent. It's just a tent. And I don't know if you're like me, but man, my Coleman's got some rips in it. And but he says, this earth, you're just a traveler. You're just camping.
Temporary.
Huh?
Temporary.
It's just temporary. That's what David is saying here. He says, remind me, take me to the end and show me that I'm not a member here. Now, imagine for David, King David, Israeli David, the ancestor of Christ, David, says, I'm not even a member of this nation. I'm not even really a member of this world. This isn't my home. How is David saying this? This is law, Old Testament David, that has somehow pieced together the story of Abraham. The light came on. In the midst of his anger, in the midst of the revelation is revealed. This life's not what's important, David. You have to go through these things. You have to go through these struggles because I need you to remember what's important. What's important is on the other side. Now, David goes on to say, he says, remove your gaze from me. I understand I'm a traveler here. I get it, but just for a second, just look away for a minute. I need a break. Before I go away and I am no more. This is before I'm dead. I think for David, he's got to that point of, I understand, I know that I'm just traveling through here, but it doesn't make living here any better. It doesn't make it any easier. I still struggle, I still hurt, I still have pains, there are still diseases, in fact, they don't know exactly what, but there was something that afflicted him. Whether that's a disease, and we see it today, whether it's cancer, whether it's whatever we may be going through. Why are we going through these things? David says, take me and show me the end because I can't see it from where I'm at. Now, does anybody here know what a cartographer is? A cartographer. So a cartographer is a map maker. So here's what I think David is saying. I'm mad and I don't understand why I'm going through this. But here's what's important, is show me the end. Because what's important is my selection, my election, my place in my inheritance. This afterlife is what's important. But I will also say that he's written this down for us because he is also, David is being a cartographer. This is why we can read it and I can see it. This is why it's in Psalm chapter 39. Because I need to see it, to witness, because David's saying it's not just important that I have my selection secured, but I also need to make a map to show you the way too. Because what's important is my selection and my loved ones and my family. Yes, we go through things. We go through discipline. It's not because God's a cosmic killjoy. It's not because he wants to hurt you. It's not because he hates you. He loves you. He will make a way for you. But it is not this life that's important. So here's the map. Abraham left and didn't know where he was going. He just knew it was a promised land. Somewhere over there. I know where I'm going. I don't know what it's like. I have an idea. But truly, I'll have no idea. I mean, can you explain God? I got an idea. No, you don't. He's too big. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what I'm going to do every single day. I don't know what I know we'll occupy our time worshiping him, but what will that worship look like? Does that mean just one extended long worship service for the rest of eternity? Yeah. Can I not worship God in my life on this earth? Can I not worship him while I hunt, while I play, while I interact, while I see? And why would God make things beautiful if not to enjoy? I think that the afterlife is so much bigger. We can't comprehend or grasp it. And David's saying, I'm mad. And if you're like me, you've been mad too. And want to say, this isn't fair. But here's what I want to remind you. Rather than speak out, rather than post it on Facebook, rather than let the wicked or those who are struggling or new Christians see you falter, go find somebody who's a mature Christian if you need to. But if you can't, shut up. Juan said it today. Shut up. Stop. Put a muzzle on your mouth if you have to. Now, to me, it goes kind of along the lines of, I had to go through pepper spray. I've been pepper sprayed I don't know how many times. But you cannot open your eyes. But you have to open your eyes for it to stop. So how do you do that? You go,
And you get wet paper towels and put on your eyes
and you're squirting soap into your eyes to make it stop. When soap feels good. In the same way, I've got to physically hold my mouth shut sometimes and stop speaking negatively. Because I don't see the big picture the way God does. It's about perspective. And that's what David's saying. Right now, I'm hot, I'm angry, I'm mad. So when I do speak, here's what I'm going to say. Show me. Show me what it's all worth. Show me why. What's the end result? Well, we know what that end result is. It's an eternity with Him. In a place prepared for us by Him. Aren't you looking forward to it? Aren't you ready to just get out of here? But here's the deal. We've also got to be laying down maps. That's our call. That's the Great Commission. It's not just enough for Kendra to know where she's going. That's great. That's wonderful. But Kendra's got to be a map maker in this life. You've got to be a map maker. This is how we do it. My granny, she always said, follow me. I've got to lay down these waypoints, these altars. You can see them, and you're going to get to this spot. You're going to be mad. You're going to be upset. You're going to be disappointed. God didn't come through, but He did. You just felt like He didn't. And you're going to get to these moments, but I want you to understand there's a whole big map, and all you're seeing is this itty-bitty spot. But God sees the whole thing with a destination in mind. You have no idea what Yellowstone looks like until you've been to Yellowstone. And it's the same thing. God's saying, you have no idea. Y'all, all you're seeing is, we have the shirt that says, I only know the chapter, but God knows the book.
Yeah.
I only see with very, I see hazily. I don't see the whole thing.
But as a Christian, we see enough that we desire.
Yeah, I know just enough to make this something I want. So, hopefully you guys got something from today's 2 chapters. I think that they're not David's cheerleader chapters, but it also shows me that David was also a human. Sometimes you almost immortalize him or make him a hero and then you read this and you go, oh, he was just like me.
Acts says that for David, after he had served the purpose of God in his own generation, then he died.
And when you look at when he had done what?
When he had served the purpose of God.
What was
in
the verb?
his own generation.
Served. What was Moses' title?
Servant.
Servant. Moses thought it was going to be speaker. Speaker of the house. Well, I don't speak real good. I don't need you to speak very little. What I do need you to do is be on your knees in intercessory prayer, and I'm going to make you a servant. That's the title. Now, is there anything better than God to say, well done, good and faithful servant?
Hey, Aaron, I was thinking, that scripture that talks about being a sojourner, the thing that always comes to my mind now when I read that scripture is when we was going through Israel, you just go around all these corners and out in the pastures would be these Bedouins, and they don't have homes. They just literally have what looks like a tent, and they follow the flocks. But I thought about that whenever we was up there, and I thought, what a life. They're really not bogged down with stuff, because literally they have to pick up and move at a moment's notice. And I really remember thinking to myself, we are so completely different. We're tied to all the stuff that we have. And I just remember thinking, yes, it was kind of a sad, minimal life, but yet I think it would be so freeing because, again, they just got up and moved where they needed to go and stepped back down and, did the stuff they needed to do there, and then they'd get up and move again. And And I just want, every time I hear that word sojourner, I always have that picture in my mind, because I thought, you know, they're really, that's what they are. They're just kind of passing through with not a lot of things tying them to this life.
Sure.
And I think that it, to me, it, you know, it's just such a visual, because I think that, again, we get so tied to the things that we have on earth, it's hard for us to think about another place, you know, how wonderful heaven's gonna
We
be.
put too much stock.
We do, because we're so tied to this.
And we don't worry about stuff till we have stuff.
And it says there, we're just a vapor.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, really, we're just a vapor, but I don't know, I always remember that.
Yeah, my granddaughters were talking the other day about, we were talking about this generation that's going to the tiny houses. So they only wanna work so many hours, they can pay their bills, they don't have a lot of stuff, and they don't want a lot of stuff, and they don't care. But some of them are building their tiny houses in their dad's front yard, and when they have kids, they send them to grandpa's. So, they said that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
All these people that don't want very much. She said they had one person at the hospital who was a pharmacist,